Welcome back, you guys. It is time for another episode of Charles and Z in the Car with Baby Man. And what we want to talk about today is we're getting quite a ways down the line with building our new home in a master plan community, and they're building it super fast. It's only been going for like 5 months now, and they're mostly done. We're going to be closing in a month or so.
Hopefully in June is the set close date. But while this has been an exciting process, it hasn't been without some surprises, right? That's brought a little bit of stress and a little bit of excitement too also.
And that's what we want to talk about today, is the surprises that we've had while building a house in a master plan community.
Yeah, and along with some of the pros and the cons, and then yes, those surprises that's kind of been sprinkled throughout our building journey. So we are building a home that's semi-custom, right? And so by that, the builder, we went to a community that had a base model, and we're getting about half of the home is just an addition, us customizing it. For example, the base model is a 1-story home. We've added on some second floor bedrooms, and we've added on also to the first story too. So I would say about half of our square footage, we just created that. It wasn't a part of the original floor plan.
Right.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to give them some context on what we're doing.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we had to do that is because my father lives with us, and so we added on to the back of the house a whole suite for him. So it has a whole living room, kitchen, bedroom, patio, like all that kind of
It's
stuff.
like a mini apartment.
It's like or I mean it's bigger.
Or a home.
It's bigger than my first apartment.
Yeah, bigger than my last apartment.
So anyway, so when we first started this process, we were looking at having to buy a property outside of a community, something that had like an existing structure that we could renovate to make what we wanted, and then possibly build a second structure on it for my dad. And so when we found this particular this builder in this master plan community that's willing to do a lot of customization, it was really good in that, they let us take like their base model and they let us like do everything we wanted to with it, obviously, for money. But anyway, so back to what I was talking about. That's the first surprise, the positive surprise for me, was how quickly they've been able to build the house. We're like 5 months in, and they're going to be done in like another month, and it's crazy. We go by the house, and there's people out there working on it 7 o'clock in the morning. There's people out there working on it 7 o'clock at night.
On the weekends working too.
Yeah, and I mean they did the drywall in this house they're going to do it in like 2 weeks, and it's just everything is flying together, and it's not bad either. We have our own home inspector who's going in and looking at stuff, and that's something we're going to talk about in a minute too.
Yeah, but just focusing on the timeline, we were, surprised in a good way that it was occurring so quickly. With all my research, with new builds, I was thinking, there's going to be a delay somewhere.
Yeah.
And thus far, the majority of the home, I would say, is built, and there hasn't been any significant delay. We had maybe a week or two that we were behind in getting a part for something. But other than that, they've been really, really good.
So I think our testimony there, at least working with a national home builder in a master plan
They're
community.
not a national home builder, but yes.
Well, they're okay. So where do they build?
So they're local. They're southern more so, but they're not international. I don't think they build up north. And
they're a mass home builder.
Yeah.
They have like hundreds of communities.
More so in our state, but they don't usually do in places like, Alabama, California, things like that.
Okay. But anyway, our experience with them has been positive in that it seems like they have a very good process for the way they do things, and they're able to meet deadlines and expectations and things like that, which is different from what we've heard with a lot of people who've had projects where they're building custom homes.
Correct. And I agree with that. I think another pro for me, and I think this is more so to our specific builder, because I don't think this is the case with every builder, I appreciated that we were able to customize so much, right? Piggybacking off of what Charles was saying with the building process, we also got to pick everything, right? And it could be a little bit overwhelming, but it was kind of nice to be able to choose, if you want a wall somewhere, if you don't want a wall. And of course, it's dependent on having the lot, the appropriate lot to do so, but you can build, rooms, bathrooms, take down walls, extend windows, as long as you had, of course, the finances for it and there was a space for it, they were willing to accommodate. And I think I was really appreciative of that. When I looked at other builders, my issue was that they weren't willing to accommodate structural changes. They had some pretty finishes, they had some pretty communities, but we just based with, having extended family and kiddos, we needed a little bit more of customization, and having the semi-custom home and really being able to, kind of design it, design half of it was really, really beneficial to us. And, I don't think we would have been able to do that. And this goes into cost, right? Not that it was a cheap home, but with the, the finishes, the size, the customization, we thought we got a pretty good bargain, I would say. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
So this would be like the second positive surprise that we got.
Third.
The third.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the cost.
Correct.
So when we initially embarked on this, we had a number in our head for what it was probably going to cost us to put together the house that we wanted, and then also have a house for my dad on a property. And when we found this master plan community and this builder who was willing to let us customize one of their base models to do what we wanted to do, the cost, I would say, came in probably 25% less than what we thought we were going to spend initially. And so that was definitely a positive surprise.
Yes. And then I think our last big pro, we have young kiddos. If you guys don't know, we have a now 2-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And we wanted to be in an area where we felt our kiddos would have the opportunity to make other friends, possibly in an amenity center. And the area that we're moving to, it is in one of those master plan communities, which, has pros and cons. But what we loved is that there is a nearby amenity center that has things like, a pool, a kiddie pool. It has pickleball courts. It has so many options that allow them to socialize with other kiddos, and kind of be engaged into our community. So that was, I think, a pro for me.
And I think the surprise on top of that is that hanging out by our new build, we've been intentionally bumping into people, as they go out and walk their dogs at night and stuff like that, and striking up conversations.
Yeah.
And so far, they all seem very nice.
Yeah, the majority. Every now and then, it's always one in the neighborhood. You're like, I don't know about them. But for the most part, they've all been, come up to us. We made small talk, which is, I think, important, especially for me. I think as a female, when I'm walking alone, I want to be familiar with my neighbors. And I think in our current community, there's some really good neighbors that we have, but there are some that are, a little bit more unique. They don't make you feel the most comfortable. So that was another aspect, I think, that we're, another pro that we're liking thus far.
And to kind of jump off of that just really fast, that is also, we're forming a theory around that in a master plan community, people generally are closer together. It's a community that's kind of designed for people to congregate and do things together. Whereas the community that we live in now, there's more land space. The houses are farther apart. There isn't really an amenity set. There isn't an amenity center. Mm-hmm. And so the community that we're in right now, we have the feeling that people move there because they don't want to congregate with other people.
Valid point.
And so we'll talk about this in another video, but we feel like the people who intentionally move to the master plan community have a particular attitude about like what they want their lifestyle to be and how they want to interact with their neighbors, whereas the ones in our community don't.
Yes. And now we talked about a lot of the pros, so we got to talk about some of, I guess, the cons that come, or the
negative surprises.
The negative surprises that come with a new build. I'll let you lead first, Charles.
Yeah. So the first thing is, now we're in an HOA community. So there's an HOA which governs what you can do and what you can't do within the community. There's also rules as far as like, when things involve neighbors, how they play out. And there's one of the things that we just found out is the fence. So we have so the fences are down the middle of the lot line, and there's rules as far as like who gets to choose the fence, how you choose the fence, who pays for the fence, and what we discovered is that the first person to submit a request to the HOA for a fence is the one that gets to decide what type of fence is going to be between your houses. And now the sticky wicket on this one is our neighbor, who we've already talked to and they seem nice until we've got to this issue. Our neighbor has a house that is a darker colored house. Our house is a lighter colored house, and the two fence options in the community, one is a white fence and one is a black fence. And so of course the people with the darker colored house want the white fence because it's going to look better against their house, whereas we have a almost white house, and so we would probably prefer a black fence. But now they're going to finish their they're going to close on their house before we're going to close on.
Look at that. We're actually driving around
we're driving around
looking at the fences to get an idea.
And that's interesting. That's a white fence with a black gate. But anyway,
I just saw one over there too.
But anyway, so they're going to get to file with the HOA for what fence they want before we are. And so we struck up a conversation with them like, hey, just, talk about the fence. And of course they want to do, the white fence.
Yeah.
So right now we're going through the grieving process, if you will, of realizing that we're not going to be able to decide what color fence is on our property.
Correct. You're gonna have to pause the video. I want to stop here. I want to see who's in there.
Oh, okay. Here.
Sorry, you guys, for the interruption. We were cruising around our neighborhood and we saw a car in front of it, and
a car in front of our house.
In front of our house.
In front of our house we're building.
And for some reason, I love it catching someone walking through a house. Granted, I'm a hypocrite. I used to look through other houses that were in the construction phase, but I like to see who's creeping around our house. And so we met a pleasant gentleman. He's going to be building, I think, a couple of streets over from us. But it's just so interesting the way that people question you about your house. Like, how many square feet? Oh, y'all got a big family. What you doing? And, I don't think anything about it, but it's just interesting how people, I think, compare houses and lots and things like that.
Be aware, the questions that you ask tell a lot about you.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that, right? Hey, nice to meet you. You're from the area where you're from. I don't care how many square feet or what finishes. It's just interesting to us. But anyway, he was pleasant enough. But anyway, I know Charles left off discussing about kind of some of the cons, and especially when it comes to being a part of a master planned HOA, and we were actually talking about the fence issue, which I think at this point we've come to terms that we might have to compromise a little bit, but I think we have come to terms and we found a way in which we can still have the aesthetic, that we would like, along with not offending our neighbors, so to speak.
One of the things we discovered is that we're allowed to build a privacy hedge. We're allowed to plant a privacy hedge along the fence. So even if they make our fence be white, we can plant a hedge that can grow up to the level of the fence. So you won't actually ever see the white fence.
Yeah, and I think we're also going to be able to get at least the gate that we want at the front of our house. So at least looking from the front of our house, it's going to have the look that I think that I would like. So I think it's going to work out.
Okay, so let's talk about another surprise, another negative surprise about the master plan community, is that so when we bought our lot, the community wasn't very much developed. I'd say the community was like 10% developed. They had like maybe 10 homes out of like the 100 something that they were going to build when we bought our lot. And so we bought our lot, and then they started building the house next to ours after we bought our lot, and so we didn't realize like what the house next to ours was going to look like. We didn't realize where it was going to be exactly on the lot and all that kind of stuff. And so after they framed that house and they started pouring the foundation for our house, we came to the realization like our house is really close to that house.
Yeah.
Like they built their house is up to like the front of their house is about 6 feet away from their lot line, and the front of our house is about 6 feet away from our lot line. So right at the front of the houses, it's like 12 feet from roof to roof, which is a lot different than what we have now. Like right now we're like on a 3/4 of an acre lot, and the front of our house is probably 80 feet from our neighbor's house, and so that was a little bit of it. We had to like get over it. And then just last week they poured the foundation for the house on the other side of us and started framing. They haven't started framing it, but they just got the foundation actually kind of outlined for that house, and we realized like that other house looks even closer.
Can we go this way? Oh, we can.
Yeah, we can go this way. That other house looks even closer than the house on the other side. And so, yesterday we were driving with the kids down to do a little trip, and we were like yakking in the car, like, "Oh, this is horrible.
It was stressing us out, guys.
Should we just not close on the house? Should we just give up the the deposit we've given them? Oh, is this a mistake?
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. We were really getting bent out of shape over because the other house being really close to ours, and then the fence thing kind of all hit us in rapid succession. Like while we're like working on the listing, the house we're living in just got listed last Friday for sale, and so we've been super stressed over the last week, kind of getting ready to do there was an open house yesterday, and getting ready for all that.
There's a lot going on.
And then like the fact that our houses are really close together in the new neighborhood, and the fact that we're not going to be able to decide on the color of our fence, that all hit us like at the same time.
Yeah.
And so granted, as I explain this, it sounds like first world problems, but anyway, so yesterday we were freaking out at the car ride. On our trip, we're like, oh, let's just back out. Let's just call our realtor. Let's just back out. This was all a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we get through that?
I think we were really freaking out in the morning, right? Lack of sleep, trying to pack up the kids, get on the road. I think once, at least for me, once I got caffeinated, I got some food, and, we were all settled driving, as we started to talk it out and list out what are the alternative options. And the alternative options didn't look so great, right? They had some major cons for us. And so...
Like backing out of the sale.
Backing out of the sale, losing money, how long it would take to build the exact house that we want. We wouldn't be in a community, right? Most likely we'll have to be somewhere rural, and that's not really great for our kiddos. I started to come to terms with what our situation looked like, right? And like I said, or like Charles said, this is first world problems. Like it really isn't that bad. But sometimes I think when you're spending a certain amount of money, hard-earned money, you have certain expectations. And sometimes when all of your expectations are not met, you can become frustrated. And so talking it out and even going back to the house today and looking at some things, I think I've come to acceptance, right? And our lot really, it is closer on the sides, but our lot is a lot deeper compared to where we live now, meaning our backyard goes way back compared to our current house. And so my thought now is, how do I enhance, the positive features of this home? So I started thinking about now really getting the pool putting in some landscaping. I just spoke to my mom actually when we stopped in her neighborhood, and this was the first time she saw the home. I videoed her, did a video chat with her, and she loves the home, and she acknowledges the houses are closer, but she started talking to me about landscaping, things that I can do, and that really encouraged me and kind of motivated me to continue. So yes, that is one con, I think, as far as with the new build in a master plan community. Proximity is not always, the best, or it's a little close as far as the homes go.
When I think about it more, if you live in an urban area, or the people who live in European countries, people are used to houses being kind of close together in a row, even very, very nice houses. And the whole idea of like a house sitting on a half acre or 3/4 an acre and being like, spread apart significantly from your neighbor is kind of an American like suburban concept, right? It's not something that people necessarily are used to, even at high price points.
And it's nice, don't get me wrong. I think we both would like a little bit more land, and maybe down the road when our kids, get bigger or move out, we'll look for a home that has a little bit more land, maybe not in a master plan community. But I think for now, this home meets a lot of our major, points, I think, right? So, as far as accommodating extended family, number of rooms, location. So I'm still content, right, with our choice. That gets me to another surprising con, right? And maybe some of you know this, but to us, we didn't realize this in the new build process. So one, everyone says get a third-party inspector, and so we did. And we thought with getting a third-party inspector, they would be making sure, the builder is following everything on the floor plan, right? As far as layout, plumbing, electrical, where the door was, the size of rooms, dimensions. We thought everything they were double checking since we're paying them. But come to find out, that is not the case.
Yeah, and that was a little bit of a rude awakening for us. What Nzinga's talking about is we hired a home inspector who to independently inspect the construction during each process, like before pouring the slab, before doing the drywall, all that kind of stuff. And when we hired them, we were under the impression that they were going to look at like the floor plan that we put together for the house and make sure that the builder had, put a light everywhere they're supposed to put a light, put the insulation or the soundproofing in the places they were supposed to put it. And after we hired this person and started paying them a lot of money, we realized that they're just more or less duplicating the inspections that are required by the county, which are like, making sure that the systems that have put in are put into code and things like that, and not really paying attention to the things that we wanted on the floor plan. And so that was a little bit of a rude awakening for us in that, like, even though we've hired an independent inspector, we have to go over all the time to the house and look around during the building process and make sure that the builder's actually putting in the things that we've paid for. There have been two instances. One was where we have big vaulted ceilings in our main kitchen family room area, and we had paid to have those finished smooth, whereas customarily the builder finishes roofs with like or ceilings with an orange peel finish because it's a lot cheaper and a lot easier. But we had paid to get a smooth drywall for our ceiling, and the builder wasn't aware. So they were getting ready to do the drywall and to do all the finish, and the builder and I'd mentioned just casually to the builder, hey, I assume you guys are doing the smooth, joints up there. He's like, oh no, we don't do that as a company. Like,
he was very adamant about it.
He was like, we don't do that.
It's policy. Other individuals in the neighborhood have asked, and we just don't do it. It's a policy. And we're like, we're pretty sure we paid
Yeah.
We paid additional. So we had a realtor kind of look up our contract. And then we have a big group chat, not only with the designer for the builder, but with the sales agent. And so she quickly got in the group chat like, hey, my clients paid this additional fee, said it was okay. What's going on? And so she responded to our builder, hey, yeah, upper management has approved this. But those are just little things, right? And it may sound very minor, but a lot of how we customize our home was around this change.
Right.
And we paid a good amount. It wasn't cheap for this change. And those are just little things that I think we both realize you really have to be on your builder about. You can't even rely on, your realtor. Your realtor may be helpful, but you really have to, if it sounds stupid to mention it, like, duh, they should know this, mention it, right? And I'm always on Charles, like every week we got to go to the house. And sometimes there's not much change. And sometimes, we're like, hey, why is that window there? And
Right.
that takes me to another time. We got some transom windows, right, in our casita. And the way they were initially placed during framing, they weren't really transom. They weren't going to give you much
No.
privacy.
They put them like in the middle of the wall.
Correct, right? And that kind of...
And it was different than the way that the house had been designed.
Correct. And we wanted some privacy for my father-in-law. We wanted the light, but we didn't want it where, someone can peek in and look at you. And so it was just little things like that. And if we didn't mention it or go and look at the house, it would have been what it was, right? We would have had no choice but to roll with it. And
the other thing, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but the other thing that's important about that is that the contracts they make you sign basically say that they're allowed to make changes without your consent. And so if you don't say something, if you let it roll like, oh, they didn't give us smooth ceilings, they gave us orange peel ceilings, if they took these transom windows, instead of putting them up here, they put them down here. If you just let it roll with that, then you don't really have a lot of recourse.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's there, it's not their problem if they built it wrong.
Correct. So if you have the opportunity, I know it's more difficult for those that live out of state from where they're building, but visit once a week, twice a week, I think would be ideal, because things can change so much with your home just because they will make mistakes, right? And I think our builders they have a pretty good reputation. Overall, they've done, well, I would say, compared to other stories about other builders I've heard, but there will be mistakes and you just got to stay on top of it. Otherwise, you're going to have to live with it, and some of it can be costly.
I think we should wrap it up. We've been rambling a lot about this.
We could go on and on about the new build. But anyway, comment down below if you guys have, done a new build before. What was your experience? Positive, negative? And if you have any advice for us, we're more than happy to hear about it.
Until next time, take care, you guys. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe below.
Down below.